No, you're fine.
Probably thinks you're going to go after him again.
No, the problem is the wind's blowing this curtain. It's like, see this?
Yeah.
It does that when I work up here sometimes. Okay, ready to go.
There. We're live. We are live.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. Yeah. I got the volume down on this. Okay, I'm good.
Hey, good morning and happy Father's Day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I mean, it's Father's Day, so I might not get a lot of people on this, but it's something for us to do.
Yeah, well, people will be out at brunch. Imagine how busy the Dobbin house is today.
Yeah, no thanks. All the elites will be over there.
Yeah.
Talking about that stuff and everything else. But we'll do it.
People that arrive late for the reservations and blame their husbands for it. That's always fun.
Oh, that was what was what was it?
That was
Easter?
on Mother. That was on. Yeah, that was Easter.
That was Easter.
And she was like blaming him, and he was parking the car.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so what's happening, Mary? What's going on? What's new with you?
Not much at all.
Yeah.
Sunday morning.
No, it certainly is. It certainly is. We have to do this. We do this every couple of weeks or so. It's tough. This time of the year is tough because there's so much other stuff going on.
Yeah. Like we won't be on here next weekend because we're away next weekend, but we're going to try and get on here on Sunday, July the 5th. So obviously day after July the 4th. Sunday, that'll probably be our next one after this. And then we released our Underground Railroad.
Here we go.
I'm going to get hit on that.
No,
if anyone wants to hit me for that, it's the same friggin' thing.
Trust me, that'll be the least of the things we get hit on for that episode.
Oh, I know. So then next we have Bruinsburg, and the 73rd or the 75th anniversary, 75th reunion, of the Battle of Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one we have is the Battle of Hagerstown at the end of July.
Which where we were, Mary. I don't know if you remember this, but we were in Hagerstown last night.
We were.
And that was pretty cool to do that. But that was nice. It was nice to get out and see some of that stuff. Of course, the people we were with were not history people. So as I stopped to read some of the monuments, they were walking right by and
they knew what the movie Glory was, though. Pat, our friend Patrick likes Glory, so.
Oh yeah, we saw that in town under the stars, as they say. Yeah. So that's good. So we can do all this stuff, but it's pretty good. But yeah, that's what it is.
Barb was just asking, like, we were a few minutes late coming on here today, but that shouldn't affect getting a notification about it. Like, as soon as we go live, you should still get a notification about it.
We're always on Mary Standard Time with this anyway, which is always about 5 or 10 minutes late. But no, we were pretty much ready to go. But I don't know the notifications, how the whole thing. I think if you subscribed,
But the thing is she is subscribed, and a lot of people are subscribed, and they randomly don't get notifications that we go live. And I think that's a thing with YouTube. That's not, unfortunately, we can't do anything about it, but it's one of YouTube's weird algorithms. You probably have to pay to make sure people get notified or something like that.
No, it's okay. Whatever. It doesn't matter. So it's unfortunately people, they jump on. It's okay. We're just glad anybody jumps onto this, to be totally honest, because, but that's the scoop. So yeah, so we were in Hagerstown yesterday. We'll do that episode on the Battle of Hagerstown, which is part of the Gettysburg Retreat. And it's funny because the people who make fun of, Judson Kilpatrick, kill cavalry, and they make fun of Alfred Iverson from the first days Battle of Gettysburg. They're the two primary people in Hagerstown. That's a good part of it. It's a good history there, and they both represent themselves very, very well. But we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. That'll be a good thing. We did the episode on the Underground Railroad this past week, which is an interesting study in it, obviously in itself. I think almost everybody, whether you're a Civil War nut or you're just whatever, has heard of it because it's an important part of American history. But it's fascinating, the genesis of it and the history of it. And frankly, I know there are people who just don't like talking about it.
No, it's the same with Juneteenth, as we discovered. It's a tough subject for some people, but unfortunately, history is not meant to make you feel good. History should make you feel uncomfortable. If it's only making you feel good, you're not studying it, the right parts of it, or you're some kind of sadomasochist. I don't know.
No, I get it. I get it. But it's an important part of history. And the people who are always talking about preserving history and you're destroying history and all this other
Yeah.
stuff they talk about. History is about learning about things you don't necessarily like or agree with. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, if you don't like the Underground Railroad or Juneteenth stuff, that sounds like a you problem as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned. And I don't have a hell of a lot of respect for those people. I'm just not gonna
Same
lie to
if you don't like people who are in the cast of Hamilton. I don't know what to
you.
tell you.
Well, it's different, but it's interesting because you talk about how the whole thing kind of played itself out. We talk about some of the people. Everybody knows about some of the principles of it. Everybody knows Harriet Tubman. I think you talked about William Still. I think you mentioned
Hmm.
him that
Yep.
he was a Freeborn, Pennsylvania guy.
Yep.
I talked about Levi and Catherine Coffin quite a bit. We didn't talk about people like Frederick Douglass or Robert Purvis, or I did mention Thomas Garrett briefly as part of the thing. And the thing about it though is you can talk about we could have done this for hours because there's so many stories and there's so many people that you can talk about. Somebody messaged us somewhere along the way and asked if we were going to talk about the Underground Railroad in Detroit. We didn't really talk about it because we focused
No.
more on Cincinnati and in Ohio. We talked about the coffins. We talked about a lot of that stuff. We talked about Thomas Drayton, the sailor. It's not that it's not important. There's just so much. There's just too much to talk about, and
Yeah.
it's an interesting place to an interesting aspect to study because it's when you look at it, it seems like it's kind of a basic thing, but it's really one of those things that really when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, you see how it was all set up and how confusing it was and how it was right under the noses of people and the risks that people took.
Yes, it's
Whether
a
it be
huge risk, but I mean, if you're in that situation, if you're in, and I think that shows just how terrible things were, is that if you're looking to run away from it and risk your life, and other people are willing to risk their lives as well for you, then that says a lot about it, that what's going on. And just a couple comments here real quick. So this is not related to Underground Railroad, but Barbara's father played for the Hagerstown Owls in the 40s.
oh wow, that's pretty cool.
But I think I've seen vintage t-shirts with the Hagerstown Owls on it that pop up in my Facebook feed. But then I guess after that they were the Suns and now they're the Flying Boxcars and part of the Atlantic League. And then uh, James says the community of runaways in Canada is fascinating. Yeah, especially in like Ontario and the island provinces. Like there's a lot of people that went there, um, which is really, really neat. There's people in my area of Huron County that were from on the Underground Railroad. Ghost of Sickles Lake says there's a cool memorial and statue in Detroit overlooking the Detroit River and looking at South Detroit, aka Windsor. Winder?
Winder. Well, that's the thing is you have there's a lot of places. I mean, we talk. I mean, obviously we talk about Boston quite a bit. 'Cause I'm focused because for obvious reasons for me, but Detroit's a big part of it. It's right on the river. It's right separates Windsor, Connecticut, and Detroit. And it's a huge area. And when you look at some of the places, we talked briefly about places like St. Catharines, Ontario, which
Hmm.
kind of turned into a free black type of town.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's a lot of it. And one thing we didn't talk about with the Underground Railroad, I don't want to say they got the crap end of the stick, because we didn't talk about the Native Americans in this because they were part of this as
No,
well.
they were helping as well.
Because people don't people know this on this thing, but they were also enslaved. And
Yeah.
it wasn't just the Africans who came over. So it's a real interesting part of history, and it's something that the country still struggles with, and it's something that they still have to shake. But just seeing how these folks did this at their own risk. When you're talking about a 6 months in prison in the equivalent of 40 or 50 grand worth of fines if you get caught. And it
Yeah.
wasn't like you got a judge, jury. You basically, if someone said you were guilty, you'd be guilty. So
Yep.
it's an interesting aspect to go over it. But yeah, so I'm glad we did it. And we dropped it on Juneteenth. That was an appropriate day to drop it on that.
Yep.
And there was a lot of stuff here in town in Gettysburg for that specific day. There was a movie Glory that was out. There was a
Yeah.
lot of stuff at the Lincoln Cemetery, the Black Cemetery they did. It
I
was a
think
good,
they're doing stuff all weekend for Juneteenth
yeah.
to celebrate. And I think it's just because it's falling on a Friday. It's also the 250th of America coming up in a couple less than 2 weeks away. We're less than 2 weeks away from the 4th of July, which is pretty cool. And there's lots of stuff going on for that in not just in Gettysburg, but in Adams County and all over the place that of different events are happening for that.
Yeah, I mean that's probably everything. But it's coincides with Father's Day. Hopefully, people out there, happy Father's Day to the fathers out there who marry are the real heroes. By the way, the fathers. No, I gotta call my father today. Actually, you don't have to remind me to do that, but I'll do it. But no, it's good to do it. It's good to just get summertime going. It's going to be anniversary time here in this town for the battle here pretty soon. That's right around the corner. To deal with that. But yeah.
And this year we're not dropping a Gettysburg episode on the anniversary. We're dropping a Vicksburg because I mean, Gettysburg is like it's covered, and as we said many times, it's covered. Like our friends Jim and Jody have the Battle of Gettysburg podcast. Matt Callery has addressing Gettysburg, which they did their latest get out of the car tour yesterday, which was focused on Barlow's Known. It looked like people had a really good time with that. So Gettysburg is really, really covered, and we just wanted to focus on something else this year on the anniversary, and we thought, well, why not?
Well, I mean, there's a rumor going around, Mary, that there's more to the Civil War about Gettysburg. I don't know if you know that. Despite the fact of the movie, which attracts, like a bug to light down here, is that people love that movie and they love the characters and they think the characters are the people, and that's just that's that. But Vicksburg, we've said this many times. Vicksburg obviously is very important. Grierson's raid's really, really important. The landing of Bruinsburg is really important. I mean, when you look at it, it's until D-Day, it was the biggest amphibious landing in American history, and people go, really? How have I not heard of that? I'm like, well, I think people, when you study Vicksburg, you're going to talk about the siege. You're going to talk about running the gauntlet and a lot of stuff. Maybe you'll talk about the trench, maybe, or you'll talk about leading up to it. But there's not a lot of talk about the landing. We were talking to Tim Smith over there, one of our book clubs a year or two ago, and he wrote he wrote a lot of books about it was the Horse Soldier, right? Was it we had him up?
The Horse Soldiers, about Grierson's raid.
And you can see why people who live out Trans-Mississippi, especially Vicksburg, they're obviously proud of the anniversary, but at the same time, it's kind of you miss that meme with like the woman's got all the microphones in front of her, and there's the guys next to her, and she's got the one. That's like Gettysburg versus Vicksburg. So it's good to be able to push the focus a little bit onto Vicksburg, which is militarily is more important. Politically, Gettysburg was more important, but militarily, it's a war. You gotta win the battles, the X's and O's, right? And that's a big part of it.
And through interlibrary loan, I got Tim Smith's book. It's just sitting across the table from me. Bayou Battles for Vicksburg. And it basically covers events from, I think, January 1st to April 30th. So it is going to cover most of that crossing at Bruinsburg as well. Goes to Sickles Lake said July 1st, 2nd, 3rd in Gettysburg is going to be crazy, and I will never go there in those dates. I did make the mistake of going during bike week. It was loud, but great. It gets loud here.
Well, it's a crossover week. I mean, the 1st, 2nd, and the 3rd, and the 4th is Civil War people. Right around the 5th or 6th, the bike people start showing up.
But the anniversary people are still here too. Right. It's weird. You go to the mine, that's an interesting.
Well, you get the Civil War people sitting with bike people in the same bar, and it's a weird little psychological, sociological experiment. Yeah. But I'm with you on the motorcycles. Oh my God. But yeah, we got to find something to do and get in GTFO here for bike week.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
But no, but it's a good place to be, and I know I'm sure there'll be good celebrations at Vicksburg. But there's also a lot of other stuff, anniversaries going on too.
Yeah. But I'm glad we're covering Vicksburg, getting back to the Western Theater again, and like at the time that Bruinsburg is going on, you have Grierson's raid going on, and he's distracting Pemberton from what Grant is doing because Grant's had the huge failure at Grand Gulf. Things did not go his way there. And then now you have him. He's like, well, we got to try something else to try and get this thing.
Well, it's a lot like trial and error with this stuff. 16, 17 different tries to find a way to get it. I mean, Vicksburg was a very strategically placed city. It was an impossible place to grab without really showing some stones with it. And that's what it was. We did an episode on. I think we did an episode on we did a handful of ones on different Chickasaw Bayou. We did
Chickasaw Bayou.
I think we did one. We did a lot of the lead up.
We did one on the siege, which we sort of talked about Bruinsburg, about how they got there, but not.
And then we had Tim on to talk about
Grierson's raid, yeah.
Which was a great experience right there.
Yeah.
And that was fun. And there's a lot of good books on Vicksburg.
Yeah.
That you can read. And that's the thing is there's no lack of academia to find, to find on this one. And you can really get into it. And you know that if you're Abraham Lincoln, you're sitting there in Washington, you got these battles going on that are happening, and you can't get word either way. And the rumor is he could hear the cannons from Pickett's charge at the White
Yeah.
House, which I don't believe, but I
I
think
don't know. I mean, I'm kind of like,
I mean, there's a lot of good urban myths that make a lot of sense with this, but who knows? I mean, it's very possible. But but that's what's great about this is because a lot history is this telling of stories, and sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not true, but it's still a story.
and just talking to Alex is on here, and he's talking about Earl J. Hess' Siege of Vicksburg is amazing, which is one of the books. There's Donald L. Miller's book, one volume on Vicksburg. Tim Smith has written numerous volumes on it.
Hmm.
Um, but then Alex just mentions like the Hess book is available on Hoopla. So if anybody here has a library card, which if you don't, go get one, please. If you have Hoopla or Libby, you can check books out for free. You can check audiobooks out for free. It's a great way to get some of these books if you don't have them, because some of them are hard to come by. And then there's also interlibrary loan too. And that's how I get a lot of, um, certain books for kind of the obscure topics if we're covering one. But it's also a great way to like try before you buy, and then
Well,
you can buy the actual book.
a really good starter book for Vicksburg, if you don't want to get really into the weeds, is the book by Winston Groom.
Yeah.
He's the guy who also wrote the Forrest Gump movie.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Trudeau's version of Gettysburg, where it tells the story. It's got a lot of good details in it, but it's not like you're studying for some guide exam with ultra. It's not a Scott Hartwig, um, you know, one of those level books, a Coddington type book, where you can read it and get a good gist of it. And then you can learn about it. Maybe you can read some different things about some of the concepts of
Yeah.
how it was if you really want to drill down. But that's a good book to start too.
Yeah, that one, and then Donald L. Miller's, which came out just a few years ago, is really, really great as well. And I mean, once you re I would recommend it's like the Battle of Gettysburg. Start with something one volume first. So like Gettysburg, like I always say Sears or Trudeau is the place to start. With Vicksburg, Groom or Donald L. Miller would be a good place to start. Even Hess covering the Siege of Vicksburg, and then get into the Tim Smith's like multi-volume um, books about Vicksburg to kind of drill down into more detail, because Tim Smith is detailed.
No, I think
Like,
Tim Smith. I think it's not a just taking a shot at anybody to say Tim Smith is probably the expert on
oh,
Vicksburg.
he is. He
I mean,
absolutely is.
I don't want to be disrespectful to Donald R. Miller and those people, but I mean,
No.
I think Smith. I mean, everyone's got. I think Scott Hartwig and Dennis Fry, the experts in Antietam.
Yeah.
Everyone has their sort of their top shelf people, but Tim Smith, not the Tim Smith you see on the Gettysburg videos, not the different Tim Smith. I think you can talk with him, and he's one of those rare people you can talk, and he presents it a certain way where it makes it's academic, but at the same time it's not patronizing, and you understand it.
Yeah,
You
like he
can
talked about the bobblehead with Pemberton.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Dave Powell's that way. We saw
Yeah.
him at emerging Civil War talk about that
Hmm.
stuff, but there's a lot of cool. That's cool about this is the people who are we're blessed right now to have such a good group of historians that are alive who you can go and talk to and then listen to, that tell a story that it's much
Yeah.
more because we've gone away from the era. Obviously, no one was alive back then, so it's not word of mouth anymore. But when you're getting people like Dean Schultz here in town in
Hmm.
Gettysburg, where he's old 80s and old, but his father went to the Granite Schoolhouse, and so
Yeah.
he can tell stories even though he wasn't around then of what his father told him, which is one generation word of mouth, which really is what really history is. And when you talk to Tim Smith and you talk to Powell, those guys, you kind of get that same feel. Same with Gelzo, same deal.
Oh, Gelzo, and then what's his face? Kent Masterson Brown as well with the retreat to Gettysburg, which we drove part of the retreat yesterday on our way to Hagerstown. Frank said, "Good morning and happy 209th birthday to General James B. Ricketts, a hero of Monocacy."
Mm-hmm.
And then Frank also said his first Antietam book was Hartwig.
Oh
So
my
imagine
God.
that's your first. I remember when he was reading that. I'm like, dude, you're getting right. into it. So he's like, so by that logic, my first Vicksburg book will be Tim Smith and Ed Bars.
No, if you read either, it's if you read Hartwig's book at Antietam, I mean, you're uh I dread I dread the
I
thought
dread
of
the thought of this
thought of the
place.
place. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. It is fantastic, but it is extremely, extremely
It's
detailed.
like this big, like
He's
it's
talking
like
about guys
big.
tying their shoes on the specific rocks, and I mean, everyone knows that the Henry Strong horse story. They know there's a lot of, maybe I shouldn't say it, but there are second level stories that people can pick up in different books. But he talks about everything. I mean, a book you gotta want that one. But it's a great book, and that's what's great about it. Is you can get historians who get really deep into the weeds. You can get historians who just want to talk about the
Yeah.
basics. So to create that that spark of knowledge and intellectual curiosity to learn more.
Yeah. And then James mentioned the mine explosion at Vicksburg makes you wonder why they tried it again at Petersburg.
Well,
That was
the
to get
mine,
rid of the Louisiana Redan, right?
yeah, the mine in Petersburg makes sense though because you're entrenched there, you're stuck, and you're kind of running up against a wall. It's like rolling a big boulder up the hill because rolling back down. They had everything. Those Pennsylvania boys, from Schuylkill over here, they dug it well. It just Burnside, at the very moment when he had everything set, he chickened out. You
Yep.
know, um, and that it's a fascinating story. And I know there was some road work that was being done in Petersburg, so you couldn't get to the mine.
Yep. They've
The
since
crater.
finished
But I
it.
think they've since fixed it. So if you've ever been to Petersburg, it's certainly it's a great visit because the Verdans is still there, the breastworks is still there, the mine
Yeah.
you can still see the big hole, the explosion, you can still see the entrance. Um, Petersburg is a vast, vast, vast battlefield.
Yeah.
You know,
And then Ghost of Sickle said, the fact we have great resources at our fingertips is nice to have, and the fact we have so many Civil War channels that do deep dives on the human experience as well. Yeah, there's great resources. I mean, the internet has made it so much easier to access the materials, especially primary source materials like Library of Congress. Bowdoin College has
yeah,
Howard's papers. You can access the Abraham Lincoln papers as well. Alex mentions that he is I dread the thought of this place is on his Audible, but that's listening to audiobook. That's gonna take that must be like a 50-hour audiobook.
so I read that book. It took me about 6 weeks or so, but I went through 5 or 6 highlighters on that book. That's how that's how big that book is when going through everything. But I mean, that's good. But you're right about the internet. But you got to be careful with the internet, though. I mean,
Yes.
unfortunately, we see too
Mm,
many of these historians, these Chat GPT historians, who are,
yeah.
especially on things like Facebook, who are literally saying stuff that's completely wrong, but they make it sound,
Yeah.
and their source is AI,
It's
which is
chat. It's
scary.
chat. They're going in and they're typing in chat GPT. And I mean, for me, I'm a person that like I completely ignore the Google AI results, especially when it comes to history. And one way that you can take if you don't want to see the Google AI results in your search results, type in
Mhm.
your search and then go like minus, so hyphen AI. And I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure that'll work to take it out of there if you don't want to
I
see
mean,
those
if
results.
you're researching the stuff, I mean, the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
If you can get access to Library of Congress, you can go and find the original notes, and hopefully you can read cursive because I know that's a challenge for
Yeah.
people under under a certain age now. But that's the place to go. It really, really is. The soldier diaries, the notes, but the Library of Congress is such a instrumental place to do research,
Yeah.
and because you're getting primary source materials, you're not getting someone's opinion of
Mhm.
primary source. Like you could read Stephen Sears Antietam,
Yeah.
and you're going to get his complete view of the Battle of Antietam.
Yeah.
Stephen Sears has never been to Antietam. He's never walked the grounds, and so people talk about that. Um, or you can read Ezra Carman from the 13th New Jersey, who actually is kind of the Batchelder of Antietam, who is the original historian who fought there, who tells the story, and you can read his papers and you can read his notes and get a completely different view of that because you're not getting his opinion.
Yeah.
He doesn't write the news. He just reads it. Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of the deal. Versus some of these other historians are going to put their spin on it. And
Yeah.
I mean I'm over in Antietam all the time, and I can tell when I'm talking to people who the Sears people are. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's okay, I get it. If you read it, and the Landscape Turn Red's a really, really good book. It really, really is. But there are things about it that are just not right, that are factually wrong. But at the end of the day, he's making a case to support his conclusions based on his opinion. And he's also using himself as a source for certain things too, which is okay, and that's to his their own. His book is a good book, but I mean, if you're gonna read about Antietam, there are definitely better volumes to read. If you're interested in just getting X's and O's, you're not getting. I'm reading a book right now which is focused on the Texas Brigade, and it's obviously very, very, very skewed on the 1st Texas, 4th Texas, 5th Texas, in the 18th Georgia, and so, but it's making it sound like they wore capes, they were superheroes, and they had the 1st Texas Works Regiment had the highest casualties of any regiment in the Civil War in a battle, more than the 1st Minnesota. But it also tells, it kind of diminishes a little bit the role, of what would be called the Iron Brigade.
Yeah.
Which wasn't called the Iron Brigade at the Battle of Antietam. They were the Black Cats. Walter Phelps, New Yorkers, were the Iron Brigade. They kind of lost their nickname after Antietam. But so you get different views and different spins on different things. But I mean, that's why. But the more you read, you get a better view of it anyway.
Yeah, but it's just so, like, with some of these, like, some of the stuff that we're now seeing, like, there's definitely AI being used, unfortunately, in research, and that's like, AI is not. It's not I don't see, I mean, as a librarian, I have very strong opinions about it. I don't like it at all. And I worry about what it's going to do to the field of history, among other things, when it comes to research. And I think you still have to go to those primary sources. And the problem is people don't question what they're looking at. They just assume it's correct. And it's like, you've got to, like, kind of question it and think, like, okay, well, where's the bias coming from? Is that,
well, I mean, that's right, but not everybody reads. Most people will read a single book on a different subject, and that's their thing. But a lot of people, we've all talked to different people who have strong opinions one way or the other on things, and doesn't mean they're wrong or right. I mean, like we said this a million times. There's no right or wrong in history. It's not math, but you have to understand that you're usually reading someone's version of it.
Yeah.
That's no shame in that,
Yeah. Larry says, agree on Sears. He takes McClellan hate to a fine art.
There's a lot of that.
And Frank said, my favorite unit in the Texas Brigade is the 3rd Arkansas.
Manning's guys. Well, I mean, the thing about it though is when you look at that Texas Brigade, it's funny because the Texas Brigade was led by a Georgian, William Wofford, which is hilarious because they originally, it was John Bell Hood's guys, and he got moved up to division. And the 18th Georgia was so popular with the Texans. They loved the Georgians. They called them the 3rd Texas as a nickname.
Yeah.
And when it was time to promote a guy to take over the brigade, they picked the Georgian, which says a lot about the Georgians and Wofford. Wofford, people know Wofford from the Gettysburg here on July 2nd, who kind of took a smaller role, didn't really do much. But he was obviously instrumental with that Texas Brigade, which was a absolute baller of a brigade. You have right along that Hagerstown Pike, you've got the Iron Brigade fighting the Texas Brigade right there, right in front of the Dunkard Church, which was a absolute rock fight. Probably the 2 elite groups on either side, just swinging away each other at Antietam. It's a fascinating study.
Yeah. And just answering, so Hal asked, Hood was from Kentucky. Yes, he was born in Kentucky. Yeah.
Originally was, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
And he's buried in New Orleans, of all places.
I was just reading that because that's where he died.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He wasn't that old when he died either.
How old was he?
He was born 1831. He died 1879. So he would have been
about 50 something.
Yeah, but 48. He was 48.
Yeah, I mean, his body was falling apart. I mean, unfortunately for him, it certainly was. He definitely paid his price, and they got smoked pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, and Ghost Sickle say can't get enough McClellan hate. He had chances to end the war quick, but never the stones to do what needed to be done. I don't think he had issues with slavery.
Yeah, there's a lot more than that.
Again, McClellan is like the most, and like that's like we meet people who love McClellan. We meet people who hate McClellan. Like he is a very polarizing figure in the Civil War still, and I think those are the episodes that we've got the most criticism for.
Well, the thing about McClellan, he's 2 sides of a coin, and people. It depends on what foot. I mean, I'm neutral. I can call the balls and strikes. I can see his good. I can see his bad. But I mean, the Antietam thing, there's so much more to that because yes, when they had the breakthrough late in the morning at the Sunken Road, that was the opportunity to end it right there, and he absolutely did. And that's where you can any of the hardcore, the Tom Clemens, the Matt Borders, the real pro McClellan people, they have no answer for that because there is no answer. But at the end of the day, Fitz-John Porter in the Fifth Corps is in his ear the whole time. He's got Washington in his ear the whole time, saying to protect Washington and Baltimore. He's being told by Pinkerton, he's being told by Curtin that there's 100,000 more Confederates hiding, waiting in reserve. So you don't know what the hell to believe. But the people who say that he should have chased him into Virginia, it's just unfortunately that you're missing some pieces with that because they couldn't get supplies. The British were down at Monocacy. Their two supply depots were Frederick and Hagerstown. They could not get supplies there fast enough. And then the troops all came down with typhoid. And they were there for 6 weeks waiting for supplies, and they all got sick. So there's a lot more to it. But again, if he had used his Fifth Corps, if he had used his cavalry better, as soon as you had that breakthrough when Edward Cross and Barlow and all that stuff happened, and they went all in, that might have been the end right there. But this is history. This is 2020 being our benefactor here. He's afraid because he's got Fitz-John Porter, who was about to be court-martialed, by the way, from Second Manassas, saying if we go all in and there's other Confederates and they get around our Savannah and they get between us and Washington, we are screwed.
Yeah.
And Washington's telling him, Lincoln's telling him, you have to protect Washington. So he had so many masters. But again, I can see that would be a hard time in real time to figure that out. But when you really get into it, it's like one of those. It's like you leave the pitcher in too long in the baseball game, and you got a guy in the bullpen, but the pitcher's doing well, and you go, "Crap! I take him out, and this guy blows it. I'm going to get."
Yeah.
But it's not the black and white thing, and that's the most common thing you hear at Antietam. I can see why he didn't, but at the same time, if he just did though, but it is what it is.
He's got his good and bad, like they all do. They all have good and bad. Like, Reynolds has good and bad. Hancock has good and bad. They all have good and bad. And there's some that I don't like. Like I don't like Phil Sheridan. I'm not a huge fan of Hancock.
You know what? If Welker had just caught that friggin' ball in fourth down, the Patriots beat the Giants. All they had to do, he just dropped it. But you can look back and you can just talk about that. But I think when you study this stuff, you got to look at both sides of the coin. You can point, you can pick out, and you can point the good and the bad. But I think that what got McClellan was obviously, he ran against Lincoln president. He bashed Lincoln over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Lincoln won. The victors tell the story, and the Lincoln community is a lot bigger than the McClellan community.
Yeah.
So a lot of that hate comes from that.
Yeah.
I don't like.
And also, it's politics.
I don't like or dislike anybody for the most part. I just think you got to look at things objectively and look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's one of those things where Antietam captures the imagination even today because it's that great what if, right?
Yeah.
He had Nicodemus Heights. He had it. He could have rolled them up. If it wasn't for those Texans, if it wasn't for the Texans who basically slaughtered themselves, and the Iron Brigade went in, and they take Sharpsburg, the battle's over, and they have them pinned. So you can look at a lot of different aspects. Joe Hooker getting shot in the foot while riding on a white horse in front of his men. Look at me. Him getting shot screwed everything up. Joseph Mansfield getting killed almost immediately in the 12th Corps. It changed the dynamic in real time. So there's a lot more than McClellan just pulling back. If certain people didn't get wounded or shot, and they went all in, they would have won anyway.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like.
But again, there's two teams on the field. The Confederates are pretty good too. I mean, they were. And when you're looking at Antietam, the Louisiana Tigers getting slaughtered. Okay, Lawton's guys getting slaughtered. William Stark's other Louisianans getting slaughtered. They all got slaughtered, but they all put these big speed bumps in their way of that First Corps and the 12th Corps, which the battle should have ended right there. It really, really should have. But yes, once Robert Rhodes and George B. Anderson had fallen off, go back to the Piper Farm. That's when, again, this is 2020 being our benefactor.
Yeah.
At that moment, he should have put the Fifth Corps in or at least the cavalry going to run up the middle, and that was it. That was the battle. But they still, it is what it is. That's why we
there's
study.
little
That's why you study history, right?
And Ghost of Sickles Lakes, I think Lee throwing bodies at him regardless of casualties scared him. I think he couldn't stomach destroying his army, especially for slavery. McClellan was definitely affected by this is my own opinion. Some people don't agree with me on it, but I think what he saw in the Crimea in Europe really affected him psychologically with regards to like how the bodies looked after the
I mean, remember
too,
I mean, it goes back to Lost Order 191 for a second.
Yeah.
I mean, although it wasn't a battle plan, it wasn't that. What it did show was Lee had divisions all over the place in Maryland. So if you're looking at that and you're seeing Longstreet's at Hagerstown, and you're seeing Jackson's over there at Harper's Ferry, and you're seeing McLaws's in Pleasant Valley, and they're all over the place, and you're getting reports from your Alan Pinkerton, the guy you paid to study and spy, and you're getting reports there are 200,000 Confederates, and you're seeing that map and they're all spread out, you're going to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're only as good as the intel you have. If your scouts tell you, okay, that this is a can't miss draft pick, you have to pick this guy, and you draft him and he sucks, the scouts don't get blamed, you do.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with this, is that it's so easy. It is so easy to finger point and blame on a macro level until you get really deep into the weeds and you realize there's so many moving parts to this. Like we said before, go over to Tommy's, get yourself a chicken parm sub. Go find a hornet's nest, hit it with a baseball bat, sit under the hornet's nest, eat the sandwich with calmness, and try to eat it. That's what these guys had to deal with in real life.
Yeah.
Make decisions while everything's going on. But that's what's cool about it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. That's what's neat about it.
Yeah, and Bill said kind of like Meade was late to chasing Lee after Gettysburg, a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, and he also mentions Hooker getting concussed as well. And like, I think Meade is in the better position to determine how his army is doing, not the administration in Washington. As much as they want him to pursue Lee, you can't after the Battle of Gettysburg, because not only are you down men, but the other thing I think that gets forgotten is you don't have the horses. You do not have the horses to be able to pursue him, and you don't have the manpower. You have a very tired, worn out army. And I think they did their best, but Meade was able to read the room, and he's like, I'm going to do my best, but
well, he did pursue them, but Lee did a lot of really smart things. Like he put a bunch of campfires on South Mountain and made it look like they were just redeploying. I mean, if you're battered and you're chasing Lee's army, and you know that he's still got at least 50,000 healthy people, and you see fires, I mean, what better place to defend than the side of a mountain? And you're going to run right into that. So again, people study history because you can study it, and you can study this stuff so tightly. You can put yourself in their positions, but unless you're actually making decisions and the importance and the fate of everything is right there, it's tough. It's tough to do it. But there are definitely misconceptions with everybody, though. But that's the whole deal. I mean,
Oh yeah.
And McClellan is I mean, he is what he is. He's got his good, he's got his bad, he is the great what if. I mean, one of the biggest misconceptions about him is that he wasn't aggressive, which is not true. I mean, the beginning of the Battle of Antietam, he was all in. I mean, he was kill them all. I mean, he would. Yeah. You said he threw the entire thing at Lee's left wing, in everything, relentless. First Corps, 12th Corps, 6th Corps, all the way down. But they started losing generals, and that's the whole thing too. And then when it kind of came time to really go in, he did stop, and that's the problem with Antietam. But he was South Mountain was aggressive as hell. The first couple hours of Antietam, right up until the point when the Texas Brigade got slaughtered. That's when everything changed at that point, because they also got slaughtered too.
Yeah. James asked, how far do you think Little Mac felt Gerard kicked after Antietam, whatever he did? I don't know if I read that right.
Was what?
Oh, it was a question about Little Mac, like how he felt.
How he felt?
Yeah.
He felt it was the greatest victory of all time. I mean, you read his letters to his wife, he says it was a glorious victory. But he was also getting letters from Lincoln saying what a great victory it was too. Lincoln was also pumping his tires too.
McClellan had an ego on him, like many of these guys
did. But don't forget too, you're coming off of a situation where Lee had just, who just beating your ass in the 7 days, absolutely beating your ass at Second Manassas. You're coming off of pulp, a falling apart army, everything falling apart.
Yeah.
And now you fight South Mountain and then Antietam, and you beat Lee. I mean, he was the hero of the Union at that point, because now the Emancipation Proclamation come out. That was one of those situations. You want to talk about everyone talks about Gettysburg being the must win. It wasn't, but Antietam was a must win, and he got it.
Yeah.
But people don't realize too, when he pushed Lee back over the Potomac into Virginia, Lee wasn't done. He was going to, like we say back home, Mary, he was going to bang a Huey and come right back.
Yeah.
And because McClellan defended Williamsport, defended Harper's Ferry, and to put all his troops there, Lee couldn't come back. He had to fall way back to Stanton. So he did push him all the way back. But what gets him is he didn't pursue, but he also didn't have supplies. His men were sick.
Yeah.
But it got him fired anyway. But that's okay.
Yeah.
But he got the victory. He was the right guy at the right time. He really, really was. But he got replaced, and Burnside was not the replacement. He was not the right guy. Meade was ultimately the right guy. Actually, the right guy was probably John Reynolds. In hindsight, if you look back,
but he did not want it. Reynolds did not want.
No, he didn't. But I mean, it was Reynolds wasn't even at Antietam. He was back in Harrisburg, defending Harrisburg. That's
my favorite moment from Antietam for you, was when the guy was like,
"Oh, so I'm sitting there, and this guy comes up to me and he goes, this is a typical thing." He's like, "Well, could you please explain to me then why McClellan did not send in John Reynolds to attack? Because he certainly should have." And I said, "Well, John Reynolds was back in Harrisburg because Governor Curtin demanded he go back to defend Harrisburg. So he wasn't at Antietam." The guy goes, "Well, that's one way you could look at it." It's like, the hell? Like, he wasn't there. What do you want me to say?
Are they going to teleport Reynolds to Sharpsburg, Maryland?
You see, if he had George Patton, if he had Dwight Eisenhower, if he had Norman Schwarzkopf, why didn't he send them into? Right? Equally valid question, man. But that's okay. That's cool. Hey, at least people are coming to this. That's okay.
Well, that's one way to look at it.
That's all good.
Just reading some of the comments here. Yeah. Hooker getting concussed at Chancellorsville is another thing that changes the outcome of a battle.
And that's the thing about it is you have a situation where sometimes the Union seem to step in at the wrong time. You have Hooker being shot in Antietam, getting concussed at Chancellorsville. All these little things happen. Reynolds being killed the first day at Gettysburg.
Yeah.
For the most part, the Confederates got, except for Stonewall, for the most part, they seem to be okay. You lost guys like William Stark, who no one really knows about, in places like Antietam. You go John Bell Hood wounded here at Gettysburg, but they seem to have the better bullpen. They can roll people up a little bit. They never did replace the Jackson loss, admittedly, but they had people in the East. The West, they had nobody. They had nobody in the West. That was because they put all their chips in the East. They had to league at everybody you wanted,
Yeah. But it's just like Chancellorsville's not about. I need to go back and study Chancellorsville again. I did for a few years study it, but not. I haven't as much lately, and I want to get back and study it. Because it's such an, and we talked about it a little bit with our episode about Stonewall Jackson and his wounding as well, which we released that episode. I think that was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I think that we released.
I think it was
released our Jackson wounding episode, which is a really interesting one to research, to see his, not just him getting wounded, but the impact of his death, in the US, and then just how people knew about the death around the world too, because he was he's like a celebrity at the time. I think he was so well known. I think because of his nickname and his personality and all that, he's a very well known guy at the time.
Yeah, all these guys were. Especially the Southern guys.
Yeah.
You think about it. You have the Charleston Mercury, who was basically the public relations department of the Army of Northern Virginia. And it was pretty much them who got the Stonewall Jackson nickname, because of Bernard B. telling that story, which is good nickname.
I think it's likely an insult though.
Well, that's always the thing about that. It realistically, it very well could have been, but it's a fun. That's a fun bar conversation. It's fun to talk about that stuff,
Yeah, well, some of the Jackson people are like, no, it wasn't an insult. It's like, yeah, it probably was. And I mean, I like Jackson. I like studying him. I think he's a
Well, we'll,
fascinating
we'll, we'll,
character.
we'll never know. That's why you cannot say black and white,
I
yes or
know.
no. But it's fun to talk about. You could say it could have been, or very well may have been, um, but you never know. Who the hell knows? But
No.
it's
I
fun to
mean,
talk about.
again, yes, I know no one's right and no one's wrong. I mean, I mean, oh, Ghost said if he had Buster Kilrain, he could have whipped old Bobby Lee.
Yeah, Buster Corain could have taken on a lot of people
Aren't there people that come here and they actually ask to see his grave?
all the time, all the time. Where did Buster Corain fight? I mean, there was no Buster Kilrain, but there was a ton of Buster Kilrains. I mean,
I
there
still
certainly
think he
was.
was a horse.
They might be, yeah. But I mean, it's not, it's, it wasn't so much Irish Brigade, but there were, one in every four soldiers who fought for the North was foreign here. There were a lot of Irish in all different, all different regiments all through
Yeah.
it. So there may not have been an Irish Buster Kilrain, name by name, but there was, it was based on somebody. Maybe that's the case.
Yep. Ghost Sickles like, so my favorite American named Jackson was Action Jackson.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, he's a fascinating guy. Obviously, whether you're a northerner or you're a southerner and all that stuff, um, you have to admit that he's definitely one who is spurs probably the most conversation because of what he is and what he does. And but I can totally appreciate what he did at the time. But it's fascinating to talk about him
Yeah.
because there are people. I think a lot of people, even in the North, can appreciate what he was and what he ultimately was without falling into the whole lost cause thing, the slavery thing. Because
Yeah.
that stuff gets old after a while. You have to kind of
Yeah.
look beyond that. But at the same time, you have to kind of look at how it all plays itself out sometimes.
Yeah. Here's a question which I mean you and I could both answer, but you'll answer it much better than I probably can because you know more about it. James asked, how did Howard do it in Antietam? And I responded in the chat. I
Oh,
said that's not his best day. He's fighting in the West Woods. I think he learns a lot from the
so
experience.
so basically, the way it works out is this: he was in the second in Sumner's Second Corps, and he fought in the Westwoods in John Sedgwick's division. It's funny, it's just all same people as Gettysburg, with just different names. So what happened was they come out of the East Woods, and Sedgwick puts his brigades in three different lines. Okay, you've got William Gorman, you've got Charles Napoleon Dynamite, right?
Mhm.
Um, Dana, right? And you have Oliver Otis Howard. Oliver Otis Howard commanded the Philadelphia Brigade, which Alexander Webb fought at commanded at Gettysburg. Same
Yeah.
guys, right? We're talking about 69 PA, 71st, 72nd PA, and the 105th PA, right? They fight in a line, but for whatever reason, they put their entire brigades in basically one big long line. If you know Antietam, you have the Eastwoods going across the cornfields into the Cloverfield into the Westwoods. Howard is the third line. So they're all moving, right? Three big long lines all moving
Yeah.
east to the west. They're all going to the Westwoods, right? They don't realize that there's Confederates in the Westwoods. They think there might be some, but there's not going to be too many. But there's guys like Jubal Early are going to be in there, a bunch of hard fighting guys. The first two brigades, Dana and Gorman, go in the Westwoods and they get friggin' pantsed, right? They just get shot off. You've been in the Westwoods, it's a hard place to fight.
Yeah.
Where the Philadelphia Brigade Monument is now, which is just outside of the Westwoods, is where Howard got to. He's moving in, and all of a sudden, on the Hagerstown Road to his left, there are Confederates coming at him. For whatever reason, he does not refuse his line. He keeps going straight. So now he's getting hit in his left flank, and he's getting rolled up to the point when he's like, get the hell out of here. He falls back north past the David Miller farm. And that's for the people who talk about Howard. I know you have to cover your ears on this one, Mary. For people who rip
I
on
can.
Howard for Chambersburg, Antietam is Howard's worst moment in the Civil War.
Oh, it absolutely
Because
is.
he, for whatever reason, he saw them coming. He had to have seen them. If he just refused the line, which Ben, his and fought, he could have kept them out of the woods. But instead, he keeps moving forward, ignores them. They get behind him. Now you lose 2,000 casualties in 15 minutes in the Westwoods because you're surrounded, and
Mhm.
they have to run like hell north. So long answer to a short question, but that's basically what happened with Howard and Antietam. And it was, and Sedgwick gets a lot of blame for that. Dana gets a lot of blame for that. Gorman gets a lot of blame for that. But unfortunately, it was Howard, that third line, that caboose on that division, who really screwed them because he pinned them all in. He basically gave them no attack, no escape route because he let them get surrounded.
And he was taking his orders, like he did not feel like he could veer off his orders, and that's what he did. And not that I'm defending him for what he did, like it is a bad moment for him, but I think like many of them, he learned from it and he carried that lesson with him. And I'm sure he was thinking of that, moments in the Atlanta campaign, especially when he's commanding Army of the Tennessee, that you can see how the bad moments stuck with Howard, that he learned from them. Like Ezra Church is like a prime example of that. It's his first day in command of the Army of the Tennessee, and he's there setting up his line because he knows he's going to be attacked. He's figuring he's going to be attacked. And Sherman keeps saying, I don't think you're going to get attacked. And he's like, why are you taking so long to protect your flanks? And Howard's like, dude, I've been here before. Like, not my first rodeo. I don't need to get pantsed again.
But if he would turn at least a portion, a couple of his regiments to face the south and block the Hagerstown Road, it would have saved a lot of lives, and it would have basically created somewhat of a stalemate. Because the Rebs didn't have a lot of people. They didn't have a division worth of people. But they basically dragged them into a spot that was impossible to get out of. 15th Mask is the furthest to the west, and they get slaughtered. But and ultimately 125th PA. But also what happens is you end up getting he ended up because of this men that he kind of held those first two brigades in and gave no escape route. And he basically put them into like a shooting fish in a barrel because of where he put his guys. And that's in real time descriptions, right? That's the problem with Howard, is that he put them in a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Right. In a nutshell, that's the Westwoods.
Didn't you explain it like that movie?
Which
there was
one?
Some movie that came out in the 70s or something that you explained. It was like that parade that happens and they all bottleneck themselves.
Yeah. So if you ever see Animal House, right? In the end, and they're in their parade and they're walking, and the guy leads them down the alley and they all get stuck on the alley and they can't get out. That's what Howard did at the Westwoods. He forced them down. They could not get out. When if he just refused the line, he could have slowed them and he could have let Dana and he could have had Gorman and an escape route to the north, but he blocked them all in. He bottlenecked the whole thing. And really that's look, I like me some Otis Howard, don't get me wrong, but you've got to be a real ball washer of Howard to try to justify that, because
I'm not justifying it.
No, because I mean, hate this. It wasn't just his fault, but if you want to study the Westwoods in a nutshell, that's it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, there's a lot of assumptions when you study Howard that you must be ignoring certain aspects of his history. I don't. I know he was not good at Antietam. I know Chancellorsville is not his best day, but my own opinion of it is that he does really well in the Western Theater, and he's a very good Army commander.
Yeah.
Doesn't get the credit that he deserves for that. And the Blackjack Logan people don't like him for some reason, because they feel that Logan was robbed of what should have been his command. But I think it was more than just Howard going to West Point that Sherman put him in that place. Sherman needed a guy that was going to follow orders and be calm. And that's what Howard was known for, being calm. There is an account from East Cemetery Hill from Rufus Dawes that when he got up there, he said it was Hancock and Howard, and both of them were extremely calm as they were organizing the troops. Larry said, wow, you're Antietam, sir.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a fascinating study. It really, really is,
Glowjam said, and Scott said, best Westwoods explanation ever. Yeah, you've helped me study it, understand it a lot better. James mentioned he had a relative in the 72nd PA, which I think was part of the
Philadelphia Brigade. Fun fact, Mary, you know who commanded the 72nd Brigade in Antietam was DeWitt Clinton Baxter. You know where he was from? Dorchester, Massachusetts.
Really?
It's always fun to remind my Philadelphia friends that one of their best regiments was commanded by a mass guy who was a Patriot fan too, by the way. Just saying.
Glowjam said, as these episodes roll on and more comes to personal light, I gain more respect for what John Bell Hood was able to accomplish to keep Lee's army in the fight.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about Hood is I mean, admittedly, we've had our fun with Hood because he is, we've talked a lot about that. But I mean, he was a stabilizing force. And when you just to I keep going back to friggin' Antietam again, but he was with Longstreet at the beginning. And when all the bullets started flying, literally and figuratively, he goes over to Stonewall, and he ends up moving his base, that Texas Brigade, all of them, into Jackson's line. People think that he was associated with Jack. He was. He was always a Longstreet. So Longstreet, Stonewall goes to the bullpen, pulls over the Texans, and what the Texans did because of Hood's former leadership, because John Bell Hood, you can say a lot about John Bell Hood, right? But he trained the first, the fourth, the fifth Texas, in the 18th Georgia, in the third Arkansas to a point a little bit, but most of those other ones into a frigging into the iron. They really, really were. Yeah. I would if I can go back in history at any time, okay, I'd sit there with my Yuengling cooler full of Yuengling, right? I would sit there where S.T. Lee's battery is now. But I would take all them out because I don't want to get hurt. At the end of the day, I'm a lover, not a fighter, right? I'm going to sit up there and I would watch that fight between the Black Hats and the Texans right in front of right in front of the real farm, right there, right across the street from where the visitor center is right now. You want to talk about ground zero of the elite Civil War combat? That's it right there. Hagerstown Road at the real farm to get it into Antietam. Mm-hmm. And this is because of the leadership that Gibbon brought originally. Now, Gibbon was with them at this point, okay? But what Gibbon brought as well as what Hood brought. And that battle was the kind of the creation or the kind of the culmination of all the training both of those guys gave them.
Yeah.
And they both, and they both, the Texans got the best of them a little bit because they drove back a little bit, but you're talking major casualties. First, Texas got their asses handed to them.
Yeah.
But it's only because when things were going bad, while a lot of them are falling back, they're going forward. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be pursuing the guns towards the Miller farm, right? And they lose their battle flag, that Wigfall flag, but it's all because of the training.
Yeah.
And that was the whole key to the whole thing. It was.
Yeah. And Hal said, who was it, Willich, that trained his men in fire and movement?
Well, that's no one, yeah, likely, but that's a lot of guys, gain credit for that stuff. But yeah, but you can't deny how much it was because the wise generals realized that once things started going bad, like when you see a Civil War movie now, right? They're all lining up and they're like glory. They're all shooting and they reload. After the first volley or two, it turns into Indian fighting. They all scattered. That's just the way it was. The movies get it wrong. It wasn't always Napoleonic. These are volunteers. Once they fire the first couple shots, they started guys going down. They were hiding behind rocks, fence posts, everything. Yeah. That's why when you see a lot of the dead of those Louisiana, the Tigers on the Hagerstown Road, that fence line picture, they're all dead. They weren't in line. They were hiding behind the fence. They got shot. Yeah. And so it just shows how the movement was and how it all kind of played itself out like that, right?
You also can't do Napoleonic style warfare in the Western theater.
Well, I mean, not Eastern theater too. There's very few places where you can fight in fields. I mean, Gettysburg, Antietam, places like that, Manassas, you see it more. But for the most part, you're fighting in the woods. Go to the wilderness, try to find wilderness. Go try to find Napoleonic style.
Yeah.
Go to Chancellorsville. Go down the Furnace Road. Go see the Catherine Furnace and try to say you're going to fight. You're going to move up towards, Hazel Grove in battle line. Ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with even Chickamauga has open fields and stuff, but then it gives way to forests and this rugged terrain, and it's impossible. Like that's why Longstreet was throwing up all those assaults towards Thomas from the woods, and you got to get over tree roots and everything else. Like it's dusk. It's starting to get dark. And not to mention all the smoke from the guns that are being fired. Like you're gonna have a tough time.
And when it gets dark, the woods clowns come out.
The woods clowns
whole new set of problems.
You were told yesterday that if we were going to give our friends a tour sometime to Gettysburg, that they want it done with your clown mask on.
Man, that'd be so much fun. Go find Hessler Tord, hide in the woods, and sit there and just peek at people and see who notices. God, he'd love that, wouldn't he? There's a goddamn clown in the woods. Yeah, but it's good. But leadership, this whole war is all about leadership, and it's about how to deal with, you're losing guy after guy after guy, right? I mean, some of these North Carolina troops, the 26th North Carolina over here, Gettysburg, they lost 5 or 6 guys.
Yeah.
You know, one Burgoyne goes down, next man up, down, next man up, down.
Wasn't that what happened at Pea Ridge or Wilson's Creek? Remember they lost like all those commanders, and then they were like, "We don't know who's in charge right now because we don't know who's dead and who's alive."
Well, that's almost every battle. I mean,
yeah.
just when you look at specifically, Gettysburg, Hood going down right at the beginning, right down over there by the Slider Farm, if you know the area. That changed everything because now Evander Law's in charge. He's up at Big Round Top, and he's just going to sit up there. He doesn't want to move. He doesn't even know he's in charge. So when you have GT Anderson and Jerome Robertson and all these other guys moving forward, now they're without a leader.
Yeah,
Third Arkansas coming through the woods, and so you're kind of every regimental commander becomes a field general at that point. And with the smoke and everything going on, think about it,
It goes to Sickle and Hessler is great. I love that man. In his one book, he wrote about the famous general at the Peach Orchard. Yeah, we love Jim. He's a good. Well,
he's one of our closest. He's one of our closest friends.
So he's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good friend. He's a rotten soldier. He's our home Bowie, right? No, he's one of our closest friends. But so we can have fun with him. We can have a good time with him.
What we do in the shadows reference for anybody that watches that.
He's
show.
He's up in the Dakotas doing his Custer thing right now. I think he is. I think he.
I want to go out and do that with him sometime because he is like the guy for Custer and Little Bighorn.
I will do that.
And I don't know that much about Little Bighorn at all.
I mean,
other than apparently Custer's last words were "uh-oh."
I'm not the biggest Custer fan, admittedly. I mean, it's not that I like him or dislike him. I just don't. One way or the other, but I can talk about the fact that I can appreciate what he did at East Calvary Field because he did probably save the Union on that side. If you think about it, But obviously he loves Sickles, and that's his big deal. And he's right about Sickles. We had him on this podcast one time, an episode
years ago.
It's been a while ago now, and he's right in a lot of different cases. And some of the best conversations in this town at the bars is the whole Sickles conversation because
I saw one. I saw some comment and I almost screen capped it and sent it to him because I don't know what the question was. Oh, if you could be a fly in the wall or something, or I don't know, it was something. And someone said stop Sickles from, doing what he did. Thousands of lives would be saved. And I was like, what?
There's a lot of money quarterback with them. But again, just like McClellan, Sickles is a polarizing figure because he loses his leg. Goes back to Washington. He recovers. If you know that bar, the Shelley's Backyard Cigar Bar, that was the house he recouped in, right, not far from the Willard. Mm-hmm. And he got to Lincoln first, told his side of the story, got the Medal of Honor, and but then history afterwards. I mean, it turns into he disobeyed orders. It turned into, he got his corps killed. There's no question he did. He and the Third Corps for the most part was never the same after that. They were mostly set into divisions of other corps, but again, it's tough in real time. He did 5 different times. He did send couriers back to Meade, asking to move his line and for clarification on his line. And Meade blew him off all 5 times. Meade was planning possibly doing an offensive on July 2nd with an artillery barrage from the Peach Orchard. And so there's a lot. It's not as like anything else in history. It's not as simple as him twisting his mustache saying, "I'm going to screw me some Union today. Let's everyone move forward." It's not as simple as that. There's way more to it. But I will say what he did do well is he did move from his headquarters up to Gettysburg at Howard's orders in a way that satisfied both Meade and Howard at the same time. And people don't talk about the fact that he was able to split his corps up, maintain protection on the Union left, and send the rest of it up to Gettysburg to help fight in a way that worked out perfectly. So, like I said, it's good and bad for everybody.
And that's one thing too, is like when Howard sends those orders to Meade and Slocum, or not Meade and Slocum, to Sickles and Slocum, I think they are a little bit surprised by that because they're like, oh, this is because if they got the Pipe Creek plan by that point, they were like, this is not what we're being told. And Howard's like, no, you need to get up here. And I think that's based on whatever conversation they had at Moritz Tavern, which we will never, ever know what was spoken there, but there was definitely something said there.
The Pipe Creek plan was more of an idea than a plan.
Yeah.
It was not a hard form. This is what we're doing. There's too many moving parts. The thing that bothers me about the anti-Sickles people, I'm going to go with Sickles, is when people sit there and say he was too dumb to be a corps commander. He was the only corps commander who was not a West Point trained. if you do me a favor, Mary, okay? Read Sickles' letters.
Oh, I know.
And tell me this is a dumb guy. He was brilliant. His IQ was through the chart. His personal life was sketchy. He was not West Point trained. I get all that. But when people say that he was dumb, no. That's insane.
No, and we'll go to Sickles' legs. So Sickles is my favorite. He was a scoundrel and a semi-good commander. And did I mention he was a scoundrel?
He definitely was. But he lived his life a certain way, and it's not whatever. But at the end of the day, all these guys were doing what they thought was right. And in Sickles' defense, he did try to get clarification from Meade. Meade did tell him he can adjust his line, but what he didn't do is he did not maintain connection with the Second Corps at his right. No. And that's what got him. That's why you had to plug in artillery. That's why when you go up Wheatfield Road, you see Bigelow's battery, you see the cannons, because he filled in the gaps with artillery because he didn't have enough men. He stretched from Devil's Den, Ward's guys moved all the way forward to pretty much where the monuments end, where the First Massachusetts is, out by the ghost of the Klingel farm.
Yeah.
But Hobart Ward's guys, you have a long battle line, but you got to right in that Peach Orchard area, where the Trossel barn is. You see cannons instead of infantry markers because he ran out of guys, and that's where you can get them. He didn't have enough guys, but But you know what? At the end of the day, they won, right? So
exactly. Charlotte says, "Were you all the ones that covered the Curse of Custer during the burning of Shenandoah Valley with Sheridan?" And I think I told her we were. I remember you telling that story.
Well, that's what we talked about. Meg's, Meg's, I forgot about that. Good memory.
Yeah, and then the house was burning, and 11 years later, Little Bighorn happens.
Yeah, well, that's where we got to get up to Little Bighorn. We got to get up there. But he says he loves it. It's a beautiful area. Maybe when he does a tour next year, we'll go up there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he does one every year, I think. Frank asked, curious how Sickles would fare for the rest of the war if he wasn't injured.
He would have been court-martialed, realistically.
Really?
The only reason why he wasn't court-martialed is because he was wounded.
Oh yeah, Ghost of Sickles Lake just said that. I think.
You're not going to lose your leg fighting for the Union and then get court-martialed. It wasn't going to happen. That leg was the best thing that ever happened to him, because if he did not get shot, he would have been court-martialed, because Meade, when they did the study later, Meade testified against him. Mm-hmm. And he would have been. There's no question he would have been. So he was lucky. It was a lucky shot that got him too. It just kind of just nicked his leg.
Yep. Ghost of Sickles Lake said he would have been drummed out.
Yeah, they would have moved him out. There's no question about it.
Yeah, desk duty or something like that. Yeah. He would have gone the way of PGT Beauregard.
Well, he might have been the Beauregard of the Union. But the thing about it, though, is he had a lot of political clout with the Excelsiors in New York, the Tammany Hall people. So they would have had to find a home for him somewhere. You know what they would have done with him? They would have sent him out with Grant out west. I guarantee you that's what they would have done.
When the 11th Corps goes out and here's
what would have happened. Here's my guess, they put Howard in charge of the 3rd and put in charge of the 11th and sent him out west. That's probably what they do.
No,
I bet you they did.
Recovered in time. He wouldn't have recovered in time.
I'm saying if he didn't get wounded.
Yeah. Oh, that's
If he didn't get wounded, because he would have been court-martialed, but at the same point, he had so much political clout, they could not have just dumped him. But they wanted to get him out of their hair. I'm just spitballing, but I bet you that's what they would have done.
Yeah, but I think
I'm just because Howard ran his course with the 11th Corps. The Germans hated him. Mm-hmm. How does that change history? I mean,
they do go on to respect him, though, and judging from I think Howard saw going out west as a very welcome change because he needed it, and he was talking at one point, after the battle, he wrote a letter to his wife saying, "I might be put in charge of the 2nd Corps because Gibbon and Hancock were both out." That would have been a terrible place for him, because Hancock after Gettysburg, Hancock did not like Howard because of Howard getting named the victor of Congress.
Hancock, there's only one person in the world Hancock likes.
I know, it's Hancock.
Let's call a spade with Hancock, okay, by the way. But I'm basing this on literally nothing.
Could you have Sickles and Hooker at Chattanooga?
Well, I mean, if you follow the dominoes, it would have made sense, because he's out of everybody's hair in the East. He's away from New York. He's away from that political power. He's still in control. He's under Grant. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? It's just one of those great what ifs. We'll never know. But Hancock was Hancock. I mean, I don't like or dislike anybody, but out of all the Corps commanders, he's probably my least favorite at Gettysburg because I know a lot of people like him. He just seemed to bring. He was that guy who brought the drama, right?
Yeah.
Sykes was too. Sykes was incompetent, but Hancock was a great general, but his people skills were lacking.
Yeah. Here's one. So Bill said Alfred Pleasonton gets a lot of hate. Most punchable face, which we will agree with you there, but there are some positives.
Alfred Pleasonton is probably the single most underrated and competent in the Union Army. Okay. Because if you think about it, not to, I guess,
are there positives? That's what Bill wants to know.
There are positives because he was smart enough that he had Dave McMurtry Gregg is basically the best division commander. He was smart. He had right people in front of him. But McMurtry Gregg, basically, he holds Brinkerhoff Ridge, which forces the Confederates to bring more troops to that area, taking them away from Maryland Stewart's guys in Culp's Hill. But McMurtry basically runs the whole thing. Pleasonton would just, he screwed up East Cavalry Field so badly that if it wasn't for McMurtry Gregg and Custer, Jeb would have run right through them. He just wasn't good. He just wasn't. Unfortunately, he wasn't. Yeah, he had a great Gettysburg campaign. AMU, all that stuff. LD Middleburg, Upperville. He did the right thing, but he was someone his tide rose because of guys like McMurtry Gregg, who was a true superstar, who should have been in charge of the cavalry.
McMurtry Gregg is buried in the same cemetery as I think Schimmelfennig up in Reading, PA.
I think so. But I mean, he was somebody again. But again, to look at both sides of this now, he did help develop the cavalry from Brandy Station all the way through. He did for the most part. Guys like Cesnola, First Mass Cavalry, all that stuff that happened at Aldie. He was in charge, so I guess he didn't screw that up. But the way he handled the cavalry here at Gettysburg, he did the right things by putting Kilpatrick and those guys on this flank, having McMurtry Gregg on this flank. But when it took the type of pure leadership, for example, Pleasonton wanted Custer, right as Jeb was about to attack, to go to South Cavalry Field over here to hang with Judson Kilpatrick. Custer says, "I don't think so. I don't know, Davey. I don't think we should do this because there's a lot of Rebs out here in these woods, and that's Jeb."
Yeah.
So McMurtry Gregg says, "You know what? I'm going to keep you here." And Custer goes, "If you order me to stay here," to McMurtry Gregg, "I will." And he'll take the hit from Pleasonton. So by McMurtry Gregg basically going against Pleasonton's orders to move Custer, he helped save that part of the battlefield, which probably saved Culp's Hill. So that's what I'm saying is an incompetent thing. Is his subordinates were better than he was. And the subordinates knew that. And they went to McMurtry Gregg instead of Pleasonton. Because
the other one I just looked at him because they kind of look, S.D. Lee and Alfred Pleasonton kind of look alike.
Yeah, a little bit. S.D. Lee was good though.
Well, not at Ezra.
No, but I'm just saying.
What was that campaign he did?
Well, I'm just thinking of Antietam. I mean, he was. I mean, you got to. They all have their moments, you know.
Yeah.
S.D. Lee, Daniel Harvey Hill. They all have their moments. Robert Rhodes, fantastic at Antietam. Shit himself at Gettysburg. So it depends on the battle that you. But if you just study Gettysburg, for example, you get an impression that Iverson was terrible, Rhodes was terrible.
Yeah.
Junius Daniel was great. Junius Daniel was actually pretty good though. But so you get different spins on different things on how it was. But you can go from a really great battle to a really bad battle overnight. And how people's opinions of them is based on what battle they study.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Bill says Pleasonton is an example of the Peter Principle.
Yeah, exactly. He was smart enough to have good subordinates. I mean, he had really, really good subordinates. But again, you're looking at a lot of things that he did. He screwed Cesnola, right? Because he promoted McMurtry Gregg's brother instead of him.
Yeah.
Right after Aldi, he did certain things that went contrary to what he should have done, and you can tell that he was flying by the seat of his pants. You work for somebody and you don't think your boss really knows what the friggin' hell they're talking about, but they just kind of they have good people work with them, so it kind of keeps the boat going. That's who Pleasanton was.
Yeah, he's not as bad as Shaggy William Soy Smith.
Well, it's a different level. I mean, Soy Smith was a much lower subordinate, but as far as you're in charge of the Army of the Potomac's artillery, either you better be really, really good or you better have good subordinates. And Gregg is the guy who should get a lot more credit for Gettysburg. A lot more. No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Don't you call him Run DMG?
Run DMG, yep.
Was I gonna say? Yeah, I was just looking at SD Lee again. It was Tupelo that he said was a victory, but it was not.
You know why? Because he stopped to see Elvis's birthplace. And he fell in love with Elvis, and he just assumed we cannot lose Elvis's hometown.
I mean, it seems like he had a pretty strong career when he started in the Civil War, but then it just kind of.
Oh yeah, well that's you just makes it for a lot of guys. I mean, a lot of people, you hit your level, you hit your ceiling.
Yeah.
I mean, no better example than Hood, right?
Yeah.
Hood, fantastic, and his glass ceiling was clearly core.
Mm-hmm.
And once he got in charge of the Army of Tennessee, he not great, Bob, not great, right?
No.
That's kind of what happened. And this is not a real shame on him. It's just look, everybody's got their limits.
It's one of those like with Bart Simpson with the cake and it says at least you tried.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at Josh Allen, football player.
Yeah.
Great in the regular season, can't do the playoffs. He has his ceiling, right? Same deal. So every aspect of life, there's somebody who's got a ceiling. That's important.
Yeah. Yeah. Ghost Sickles like probably ate nanner and peanut butter sandwiches with Elvis.
Oh yeah. It's hard to believe he died young of a heart attack, huh? Well, there was some drugs involved too.
There's a lot going on with Elvis that was involved.
Fat, drunk, and on the can. That's how he died.
So bad. No, I'm just looking up a little bit about SD Lee here. But yeah, good when it starts, and then like Ezra is not a good day for him.
SD Lee was a lot like Franz Siegel. He was best doing artillery.
Yes.
And if they just stuck with artillery, it would have been a different story. But again, it happens when you have that attrition, you start to lose guys. You have to move people along.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeb Stuart was put in charge of infantry to replace Jackson in Chancellorsville.
And he was good.
It worked out pretty well because Jeb was pretty good. He was. As flamboyant as he was, the dude could, he knew what he was talking about.
Glowjam asked, what was Sickles' ceiling?
I think the core was probably a 7. I don't think he was going to go much higher than that. But he was pretty good, though. He was for the most part. But again, the way it played itself out, it is so funny because the cult of personality with someone like Dan Sickles, and they talk about that story, which is completely wrong when he's smoking the cigar. Never happened. I mean, he was white as a sheet. And he couldn't, but it's a great story. If I get shot, Mary, and they're taking me away, get me a cigar. I'm going to fire it up. Because the story is that the men were saying, this is how I'm going to tell people I'm okay. It's all folklore, but it's pretty cool, though,
Estella just popped on here and she said, I come in at half drunk and on the can. For a second, I read it as she's coming in half drunk.
I was going to say that sounds like an admission to me, No, but it was pretty funny.
Michael just said Sickles' ceiling was Queen Isabella.
Yeah, probably was. Probably was. He's a fascinating character, though.
He is.
He is.
I need to read the Peach Orchard book again because I listened to the audiobook
here's the thing I don't quite get, though, and maybe this is just me. I freaking hell do I know, but how can you study people 150 years ago and come away with such a personal hate?
We're the point where you're telling a person who studies them that they need to be court-martialed and shot.
Yes. I mean, the man with the mustache was told he should be hanged because he studies Sickles.
Yep.
I don't think he's a super fan. I think he is. But that's the thing is how can it bring up so much emotion?
It does. That's the thing is like men like McClellan bring up emotion. Howard brings out emotions in people that think he was crappy, like just shit here. And
I know there are people in world history who are justifiably hated, but I'm looking at someone like you. It's someone like a Dan Sickles, and I'm trying to think. Like guys like George Sykes is another one who no one likes. Pleasant, we talked about, no one likes him. Fitzhugh was another friggin', there are people like that who it's so funny talking to people. And, I cannot stand Dan Sickles. Well, why? I cannot stand
Yeah.
Otis Howard. Well, what the hell did he freaking do to you?
And then what's really funny is we've had some conversations at the mine with people about Howard, and you asked one guy one night, "What do you have against Howard?" And he was like, "I don't know." Like,
You know damn well why.
I know.
We're not going to say any names, but somebody who's everybody knows in the history world, a very popular guy, who doesn't like Howard. And I asked him, well, why don't you like Howard? And he said, I don't know.
Like, I don't know.
And we're talking about someone who everybody knows from the Civil War world. But it's fun though, because I think the Ed Bars aspect of it all is big for some of these guys.
Yeah.
Because he clearly didn't.
No, he didn't.
But whatever, teach their own. But I think
to each their own, but don't like
I just think it's funny,
James brought up Jefferson C. Davis.
Right, but you can point to certain aspects of it all. Bull Nelson probably wasn't a big fan. Ebenezer Creek, he has his bad moments. The troops didn't like him, so you can sit there and say you can pick and choose. But even Jefferson C. Davis, even him, you're going to find something positive about, right? Now Howard's issue was he was Ned Flanders. He was I'm better than you. I've got religion in my head. If you're talking about guys like McClellan, guys like Hooker, guys like Butterfield, got guys like Humphreys, okay, of course they're not going to go along with Howard, because when you're sitting around drinking your whiskey and you're talking, you're notching chicks at every town you're in, and you got Howard saying, "Well, you shouldn't be doing that. You can be going to hell." No one wants to hear that. So of course,
I mean, and Ghost of Sickles Lake said Howard was pious and boring. He was pious. I don't agree that he was boring. Not his letters are not boring to his wife.
No, and that's a big misconception. It's somebody we know here in town who studies Howard said that Howard didn't have a sense of humor, and I would completely disagree with that, because I mean, I grew up in New England, and I have a lot of friends from Maine. Okay, especially the coastal area where Howard's from the Leeds, Brunswick, that area. And he had a very dry New England, sarcastic, Puritan-esque wit with him. He was funny, but he didn't come across as funny unless you're from there. And I know people who have that same personality from that area. I mean, I don't know, but I know people from Maine who act like him, who I can almost guarantee that's how Howard was. He had a very dry, sarcastic wit to him. He was very smart, but he was doing it to be funny. Like the example we talked about here with Elizabeth Thorne.
Yeah.
Perfect example of that, when he's like, you need to take your valuables out of here. And he goes, but you probably think everything here is valuable. In his mind, that's a joke. He's being funny. She didn't think that was funny. That was insulting. But in him, he's like, oh, sorry, that was a joke.
He's very funny. Like he's very sarcastic with his wife at times. He even slips some jokes into his memoirs as well. Like when he talks about when he gets to Bentonville and he's like, whoa, Slocum arrived before me for once. Or he's telling stories about Kilpatrick getting really upset one day. And the three of them, Sherman, Kilpatrick, and I think Slocum was there too. Four of them, and Howard's there. Four of them are all talking, and then Kilpatrick says something like, well, how do you want me to let you know when I've arrived? And Sherman just looks at him and says, well, burn a bridge or something.
Yeah.
And he also tells the story in his memoirs of when the woman, he's in Columbia, and there's a lot happening in Columbia.
There's a comedian, maybe no one really knows who he is, but I know who he is because I knew him from back in my day. His name is Stephen Rice. Okay, so he's a Boston guy. Go on to YouTube and watch Stephen Rice do comedy. That's Howard. Okay. He very dry, very sarcastic, just if you get a chance, his name is Stephen Wright with a PH, WRIGT. Watch, he's hilarious, but he's extremely dry. Yep. That's how Howard was. And I don't know this, but just because I know people from that area who are like that, that's how they all are.
Well, and you've read Howard's letters too, and I've told you about them. And but the one story that he's telling in Columbia, this woman comes up to him and she's like, I need to get into my house to get my stuff. And he's like, basically goes off on her. And he admits he was doing a lot and probably shouldn't have. Well, this woman knew Sherman, and she shows up at the headquarters. And they're all there, including Howard. And she's like, one of your men was disrespectful to me, blah, blah, blah. And Sherman's like, well, I'll have him court-martialed. Who was it? And of course, people are thinking, oh, Blackjack or somebody like that, right? No, she points to Howard. And she's like, it was that man. And they just, I think after she left, they all lost their minds laughing because they couldn't believe this woman's coming in to say that Howard had been mean to her.
Yeah.
But he tells that story. Um, so it goes to like, yeah, Howard seems like life party story, but being a former sailor, having traveled Far East, he is boring. I don't think he's boring at all. He's different from Hooker and Stickles and Butterfield. Yes, he's not going to be the party animal, but to say he didn't have a sense of humor is, I didn't agree when I heard that when we were on a tour with some people last year. Um, I just think he's obviously a very different type of person from Hooker, Stickles, and Butterfield, who are like party animals, but I don't think that makes him boring.
I'll tell you who I think was probably boring was Jackson. Because Jackson was also pious. The only people who really saw his personality was his two wives and his sister-in-law. Everyone else never saw a different side of Jackson.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling, knowing the personalities of the people from that area, how he probably was. Stephen Wright's probably the best comparison. He probably is. I mean, no one really knows, but people got a kick out of it. But
yeah.
But I think it's pretty fun to say how it is,
Yeah. Oh, and a Canadian saying he is not boring is not the flex you think it is.
It means some pretty funny people in Canada.
Yeah.
We
have senses of humor in the Great North.
Of course, watch CSTV.
Yeah, SCTV. Yeah. Schitt's Creek.
But it's fun. It's fun to be. Yeah, it's fun to it's fun to try to study these guys. We'll never know. But I think everybody has built in these.
It's all just opinion.
These things. But I mean, there's definitely a sectional or regional type of personality, and maybe I'm following the stereotypes, but I think there's a certain type of personality each region definitely has, and I guess I kind of put them into that region because if you know people from that region and they kind of act that way, they're probably from that way.
Well, I know moving here to Pennsylvania, we sometimes have to, shut down the sarcasm and the ball busting because people here don't get it.
Nobody here in Pennsylvania.
They don't get it.
Now, Pennsylvania is for this area is where sense of humor goes to die, unfortunately. But it's okay. It's fun. It's fun. There's no one can indulge in the great art of sarcasm here. No one can fit there.
They get very upset. Very upset.
That's okay. It's just people are different.
It's just regional. It's a regional thing. I mean, I grew up in a family where you had to have thick skin because you constantly got your balls busted.
Yeah, absolutely. And being in an army situation, that's you can only imagine that must have been. Yeah, but there was the Butterfields, the Humphreys, the Hookers of the world, who were doing their thing. The Henry Heaths of the world on the Confederate side, certainly. The Jeb Stuarts of the world. And it's been that this plays for that too. But a lot of these guys, it's like anything else. I don't know how many current military generals are a fun blast to be around. We'll never know because people tend to think that they're still cut from the same club. To get to that level, you have to be a certain way.
Yes.
But you read their letters, especially letters home to their spouses, letters to their family. You can get a little bit of an insight to their personality in some things. In the Jackson one, how he acted towards his daughter, how he acted towards his wife and his first wife, but especially his sister-in-law, who that was what he really liked.
Yeah.
He acted a certain way, and he didn't show it to his men because that's the way he was. He sort of didn't show it to his VMI students who all hated him. So but it's just fun.
So Fragile X Factors, as far as I know, he didn't publicly defend the 11th Corps. Howard didn't defend them as much as he should have. I mean, and that's how it was back then. But yes, he did express a lot of regret in private. The media really blasted him hard and the Corps, and he told his wife a lot of stuff. There was a point where Howard actually considered resigning altogether because it was so bad after Chancellorsville.
Right, but he also didn't attack other people either. That was the thing.
Not really. The worst thing he did was say Hood was stupid.
Right, but as far as he didn't go after the Hancocks of the world. He didn't go. He didn't. He kept his mouth shut. He didn't say one way or the other. He did his job. I mean, I don't think personally he liked a lot of his 11th Corps. Now they weren't all German. They were they're less than 50% German. But I think he didn't understand that. And you saw the same thing with Hayes in Louisiana, the zoo of the Tigers. Is you're dealing with a different type of cat. And if you're a Bible thumping type of New Englander,
yes,
and you have a dry sense of humor and a dry wit, you're not going to be hanging around with guys like Schimmelfennig or Shizanovsky or people like that, because you're just not going to associate with them because you have nothing in common with them.
It's like the free thinking Germans versus this, very Christian guy. It's going to be a clash of cultures, and it took them a while to really get to know each other and have some kind of respect. And I think eventually they got there. But like the one thing, Howard never gave up the name of whoever it was after Chancellorsville. Very high. All he said was it was a very high ranking officer in the Army of Potomac that told him he needed to leave the 11th Corps and ask for another assignment. Like basically, you need to command a different corps and ask for that now, because these guys are always going to run. And Howard said, like, I knew I had to stay. And he never gave up the name.
No,
we'll never know who it was.
No, and that's the thing too.
I think it was likely Meade.
It probably was, basically, but again, you're dealing with certain guys, von Steinwehr, and the only real people you're really going to associate with are guys like Francis Barlow. Not exactly Mr. Personality.
No.
The poster boy for no personality is Adele Bart Ames, another one he had to deal with, right? So not to mention you're probably in a situation because you have guys like von Gilsa, guys like that, where you probably feel that your men don't like you, but he doesn't really care. But he tried to show personal leadership at Gettysburg, when he did, planting that flag over here where the hotel is now.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of these guys, it's preconceived notion with different people. But he's like you said many, many times, he's a classic guy where a change of scenery was the best thing for him.
Yeah.
Because he was a different guy in the West. He really, really was.
Well, yeah, and he still had to deal with, there was still shit in politics to deal with out there, but it wasn't the same as the Army of the Potomac. I mean, the other thing he had going against them was the same thing Doubleday had going against them, was he was an abolitionist at a time that's not good to be an abolitionist.
Yeah, well, he didn't get screwed like Doubleday got
Doubleday
screwed,
was
though.
more vocal about it, and I think Howard learned pretty quickly at West Point.
Yeah.
When he was there and got the shit kicked out of him.
Doubleday, the thing about Doubleday is he's kind of a punching bag because people make fun of the baseball thing with him, right?
Yeah.
Really good in Antietam, really good at Gettysburg. When Reynolds went down, when Doubleday took over, he did almost everything right over there in those Herbst Woods. And then he gets rewarded how? By getting demoted for John Newton. Mm-hmm. He gets bumped, and he didn't deserve it. But again, he's somebody who he had his moments of good and bad too. But I think a lot of it's politics. I think there's a lot of anti-New York too that plays in a lot of this stuff too.
Yeah,
with certain things, and it's don't get me wrong. I'm no fan of New York, Mary. You know my history with New York.
Yeah.
But I think some of it's unjustified.
Yeah, the one guy who flies under the radar who we really need to do an episode on is Slocum.
Yeah.
He's just he's there, but it's like he doesn't really do like.
Well, they come slow to come slow. That was his whole deal, was that he was slow, and again, even that's not 100% true. I think a lot of it's just with his name.
There was some letters and papers found very recently, like I think in the last decade, that has really started to turn the tide on him, that he wasn't as bad at Gettysburg as what was once thought. And yes, he did kind of, I think, question what Howard was asking him to do. Like, why are you asking me to come up here? But he did it. And yeah, he was the last to arrive.
Well, the Gettysburg thing, it hangs over everything. I mean, you look at people like who just study focus on Gettysburg, you would think that Sykes, 5th Corps, was a rock star. This was his big moment. Mm-hmm. Look at Bristol Station. Tell me how good Sykes is. I mean, there's a reason why Sykes, besides Sickles, has no statue here.
Yeah,
because he was a biohazard dumpster fire of a general, right? And he had a good moment here because thanks to guys like Strong Vincent and Chamberlain, that whole deal. but he was not good. He's somebody who he gets his tires pumped because the little round top and everything.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, Sykes was not. He was definitely somebody. Even though he was a West Point guy, was somebody who did not take to Warren as much as some of these other
No,
guys. I don't mean Governor K Warren. I mean Warren.
no.
You know.
I like Governor K.
Yeah, I mean, all that, but it's funny how the Gettysburg thing gives you talk to people and they say, well, I think this person's great. Well, it's like, well, yeah, it depends on the battle. Everett
Mhm.
O'Neill over here, over here, the Peace Light area, the
Yeah.
Confederates, he was a mess here. George Dole's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
George Dole's is the reason why Barlow got destroyed. Not great overall. Stephen Ramsey, fantastic. Okay at Gettysburg, right? So when you look at how this whole thing plays out, it's funny how perceptions kind of trump reality in a lot of different
Yes.
cases, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean right or wrong. You can study this battle and you can study this battle, and you can have two totally different opinions of the same guy based on how much you study. You
Yeah.
know?
And what you study, who you read, and all that. It's
Yeah, of
very
course.
fascinating.
Yeah. And that's what's cool about it. And it's great to talk to people because we know people who, speaking specifically of of guys like Longstreet, for example, um, their history in the East, in the West is extremely different.
Yeah.
Right. You can write a book about Longstreet and talk about everything he did here, Lee's old war horse and all the things he did. And then you can look at the Battle of Knoxville and realize what a disaster he was.
Yeah.
And it's the same guy. If you
Yeah.
just study Knoxville, you think this guy is the biggest joke in the world. So that's what I mean.
Yep.
So you kind of have to look at a world like a 360 view with a lot of these guys.
Well, that's the only way you're ever really going to truly
Yeah.
understand them. And don't just look at their memoirs are one thing, but if they have letters that they wrote to their wives, those are you're going to get the true person there in how they're writing to their wives. And it's very human. I found a letter that I think it was after Chancellorsville that Howard wrote his wife. He wrote her a paragraph or two about he'd lost his horse, Charlie. The horse died. And he
That does
was,
happen.
but he was these guys are attached to their horses. They're not just this kind of, they're not like the owner of the horse. This is who's going to get them around. They have to know the horse really well. The horse has to be comfortable with them. And for a lot of these guys, losing the horse was like losing basically a pet.
Well, I mean, a horse was an extension of the people.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some who obviously are very, very attached to their horses.
Yeah.
Little Sorrel, Traveler, Old Baldy. There's a reason why we know their names because that's how important they were to the individual specific people.
Yeah, and just the way Howard talked about it was like he just said, "I lost Charlie."
Winchester, right?
Yeah.
We did whole episodes on Civil War horses back in the day. Remember, long time ago.
Fire Eater was Albert Sidney Johnson's horse. Claiborne had Red Pepper and Stonewall. Lee had Traveler and what was her name? Dolly? No, Sherman had Dolly.
Yeah, I forget.
Lee had Lucy Long.
Right.
X Factor said, "Have to jump off. My girlfriend want ice cream. Wishing everyone a great week."
Oh, ice cream sounds good.
Enjoy. Have a good day.
Yeah, we should jump up here pretty soon because it's almost 12 o'clock already. Time flies here at a good time. But it's good though. So so like we said, we just did the episode Underground Railroad. Check that out if you haven't. Yeah, and it's a fascinating study, and we always try to keep these things to an hour, but this thing could have gone on and on and on. There's just so many good stories we talked about.
Yeah.
So check it out, and maybe hopefully it forces people to kind of study a little bit on their own. It's great for someone like me because there's a very heavy Masonic background in this.
Yes.
That a lot of people don't realize.
I didn't realize until the episode of Fragile X Factor said, "Thanks for the Underground Railway episode." It must have been incredibly difficult.
You keep saying railway.
Railroad, sorry. You know what? It's the same freaking thing.
I know
if
it is.
Someone wants to leave us a 1-star review because I said railway instead of railroad, have at it.
That's pretty funny. Anyway, so that's good. So why don't we jump off? So episode next is Bruinsburg?
Yep, Bruinsburg.
Right? Okay.
And then the 75th reunion of Gettysburg, and then Battle of Hagerstown.
Yeah. And so there'll be a lot of good stuff coming. So we're going to do another one of these lives. We have a round table we're going to be scheduling soon. We keep saying it, but we're going to do it. It's just life is.
We've just been really busy.
My life will get a lot simpler after July 1st, right? Mercifully. Yeah. So off we go. All right. So everybody have a great Father's Day, everyone. Enjoy it. Get out there, talk to your father if you can, talk to your kids, talk to the mailman, whoever your father is, right?
Talk to your cat.
Anyway, and have a great rest of the weekend. I hope it's warm where you are. Go to see some battlefields. Go have some fun. Go out there and do some stuff. Enjoy today. It's a beautiful weather day here. Hopefully, it is where you are.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for coming on here and for your questions, your comments, the discussion. You guys are what make this keep going for us, I guess.
Yeah, so absolutely.
James said I'm using the proper English with the word railway.
You're not wrong, but it's just everyone knows it's Underground Railroad.
People will find, trust me, people will find something with one little thing to nitpick at with pronunciation.
The same people who loved our Stonewall Jackson episode hate us for the Underground Railroad. It's funny how that works, but well, life goes on. All right, Mary, off we go. We'll talk to y'all soon.